Hello students and namaste everyone. I am Dhaval sir and our today's topic is your standard 8th social science chapter number 6 effects of the British rule in India. In our previous chapters in your social science we had seen how the Europeans they had come to India and how they were successful in finding out the sea route to India, then how the different Europeans came to India one by one, and how they had a cutthroat competition with each other, and how the Britishers emerged as a powerful one. Right? Then we had seen the British East India Company fighting war with Sirajuddaulah, right? And the Battle of Plassey and the Battle of Buxar taking place, and that was the beginning how the Britishers became the rulers of India. Then in today's lecture, we will see how the Britishers, right, the how the ruling of the Britishers had its effect in the Indian society. That means what kind of effects were seen in the Indian society due to the British rule. Okay, so we'll start with the chapter. Aruna was reading the newspaper in the morning while her daughter Purva was sitting beside her and doing her homework. Aruna read loudly, Revolution in Libya. Now, what is the meaning of the word revolution? Right, revolution means to bring about change in the society, right? Movements taking place in the society by the people to bring change. That is revolution. Okay, so revolution in Libya. Libya is a country in North Africa. Hearing this, Purva asked, why do people revolt? So again, revolt means movement taking place, right, by the people of the country who are not satisfied with anything. Aruna answered, when the needs of the people are not satisfied and people face economic crisis. Now, what is economic? Related to money, right? Crisis means deficiency, right? Lack of money. Okay, so when the people face economic crisis, they revolt. In our country also, during the British rule, the condition of the people was very bad and resulted in revolt. So we all know that the Britishers had made the condition of the Indian people very pathetic. The Indian farmers, the Indian rulers, and everyone had become extremely poor, right? They were exploited like anything by the Britishers. Okay, so let me tell you about the life of the Indians at that time. So we'll see what or how kind of or what kind of life was the people of India during that time. India was economically prosperous till the 18th century, right? This we have already seen in the previous chapters. The anarchy that followed the death of Aurangzeb too could not weaken it. Right? So the anarchy means the situation of chaos, right? Because of the absence of governance. If there is no governance, no one is there to manage the country, or no ruler is there to manage the place or the region, then there is a situation of confusion which is known as anarchy. So the anarchy that followed the death of Aurangzeb, so that is after the death of Aurangzeb, there was no one to rule that place and there was a situation of confusion, could not weaken it. It had been admitted by historians across the world that the industries, production techniques, and the organization of trade in India were unmatched at that time. Unmatched at that time means there was no competition. No one could compete against India in this matter. Okay, that means India was very prosperous in each and every way. The same country, India, became poor and bankrupt. Bankrupt means if a person is bankrupt, can be said as debtor, Debtor. Debtor means a person who doesn't have money with him, all his money is lost, right? So that person who is not able to pay money to anyone becomes bankrupt. So India became poor and bankrupt during the nearly 200 years of the British rule. It became the country that supplied raw material to the factories in England and offered a large market for the finished products of the factories in England. Right, so India, which was in the early 18th century one of the most prosperous nation in the whole world, became just merely a country who used to supply raw materials to Britishers or England, and it was just a market for the Britishers to sell their goods. Okay, next, now from here we'll see the different effects in the society during the British rule, right? So the first one is condition of peasants. Peasants means the farmers. So the condition of peasants and agriculture during the British rule. Okay, so the British got a new opportunity to increase their income after the acquisition of the Diwani rights. Diwani means right to collect land revenue, right? So as we had seen that the Britishers had started acquiring or conquering different places, so now they had got the Diwani rights, so that is the right to collect the revenue, okay, from Bihar, Bengal and Orissa. So they started exploiting peasants, that means the farmers, to earn more revenue, and as a result the peasants became poorer, right? So what did this Britishers do? They ordered the farmers to produce only those raw materials or only those things which they wanted for their products, like the cotton, the indigo, right, the spices, and they paid the farmers very less amount of money. They purchased the goods or the products from the farmers, and they did not pay them with sufficient amount of money. So the farmers became poorer. A large number of peasants, okay, before that one line is left, many times the peasants had to sell their jewelry to pay the revenue. Okay, one more thing I forgot to tell you, that means they paid less amount, and on the other side, as we know that the Indian farmers are totally dependent on the rain for their agricultural production, for their agricultural yield, right? So many a times a situation came when there was no rainfall, or due to some or the other reason there was a crop failure due to famine or drought, right? Then to the farmers, they were forced to pay the revenue, that is the tax, right? So if they did not earn anything, right, they had losses due to famine and drought, then too they were supposed to pay the taxes to the farmers. So this was a very pathetic condition for the farmers, and ultimately they did not have any kind of choice but to borrow money from other people by mortgaging their jewelry, right? So they had to give away their jewelry, and they had to borrow money from other people to pay their taxes or revenues to the Britishers. Okay, so a large number of peasants had to borrow money from the money lenders, and consequently fell into a debt trap. DEBT means debt. We say karaj, karjo in Gujarati, right? So that is debt. Okay, debt trap. Trap means jal. So the farmers ultimately got trapped in the debt, and they could never come out because the amount of interest what the money lenders took from the farmers was very high, and slowly and gradually the farmers land was taken away by the money lender because they could not pay back the money to the money lenders. Okay, farmers lost their land, and agriculture suffered in many regions of India. Moreover, Bengal witnessed a terrible famine in the year 1770 century, in which lakhs of people died of starvation. So famine means what? Famine or drought is a situation when there is no rainfall at all for continuously 2 to 3 years, and due to which there is no water for drinking, and as there is no water for drinking, there will be no water for even farming or irrigation also, right? So there was no crop or a crop failure, and due to that there was no food to eat, and because of that many people in Bengal, there is lakhs and lakhs of people died due to hunger or starvation. Okay, Governor General Lord Cornwallis enforced means implemented Permanent Settlement Act in order to collect the revenue. As per this act, the company fixed the revenue on an annual basis. That means the revenue was fixed. That means minimum this much amount is to be paid by the farmer. Whether they earn profit or loss, they grow any crops or not, they have to pay the fixed amount of money. That was Permanent Settlement Act. The zamindars or the landlords were given the permanent rights of the land and revenue collections. This is how a class of landlords loyal to the company was created. So, as we saw right now, that the zamindars were the Indian people or the landlords who were Indian, right? They were given the rights by the Britishers to collect the revenue from the farmers. So, this group of people they became loyal towards the company. This act also ensured the income of the company. That means the landlords they collected the money from the farmers, right? That means a fixed amount of money was ordered to the landlords or the zamindars to be collected from the farmers, and from this fixed amount, even the Britishers took their part. Okay, that means even the Britishers also took a part of income or money from this zamindars, which were collected from the farmers, right? So this act ensured the company or income of the company. Against this, the peasants who worked hard in the hot sun to cultivate the land and grow crops were exploited. So that means they were cheated, right? Because if a person who is having loss or who is not earning income only, then how is he liable to pay the tax? Right, so this is how they were exploited. Okay, one side they did not earn any income and the other side they had to pay heavy taxes. Okay, we'll move further. Right, impoverished peasants. Right, here it is written below the picture. So impoverished peasants means the farmers, the situations of the farmer had become very critical. They had become poorer, right? And slowly and gradually they were becoming more and more poor. Okay, and on the right side you can see the picture of Cornwallis. Now next we'll see the effect on social life of the people, right? So social life means on the society. Warren Hastings, the person who was given the job of collecting revenue, was known as collector, right? That means a person who collected the revenue was known as collector. He also performed the function of a judge. The British system of administration destroyed our ancient system of self rule. Self rule means in the previous system before the Britishers, there were small provinces or the regions, right, where the rulers were there or the panchayats were there, and they took their own decision. Whatever the judgment was to be taken was taken by the panchayats or the rulers of those particular place, right? But after Warren Hastings came, the the system changed totally, right? The Britishers implemented their rules, and the person who was given the right to collect the money was also given the right to give the judgment. Okay, so the self rule came to an end. In the ancient times, every village was like a small republic. Gram panchayats handled the administration of the entire village. These panchayats were like the backbone of the self rule in our country. These institutions of local self rule stood their ground even during the times of foreign invasions and the Sultanate period, but were destroyed due to the administrative policies of the Britishers. That means the Britishers had changed the administrative policies totally, and due to this, the self rule came to an end. The policy of the social reforms by the company made people insecure and suspicious. They felt that the government was trying to convert them to Christianity and destroy the Indian culture and religion forever. So, what happened in the society? That means we had seen in our previous chapters that the governor generals like the Dalhousie, William Bentinck, right? They tried to bring reforms in the society, and due to such kind of reforms or the changes, the people of India became doubtful. Suspicious means they became doubtful. Now, what doubt came to them? That means they had a doubt or they had a suspicion that these Britishers were trying to damage or destroy their culture, and they were trying to convert them to Christianity. Okay, people believed that the Indian social system was deliberately undermined. That means deliberately means janbujke, right? So deliberately, that means being aware, they were trying to suppress the Indian society. Okay, so people believed that the Indian social system was deliberately undermined in the railways and military. In the railways and military, that means in the railways and military, that means the Indian people who were working in the railways and in the military for the British people, about them it is being talked about, right? So they were forced to do things which were not acceptable, right? An order was passed in Agra that every Indian had to salute the British, right? So this is the thing which the Indians would never like to do, right? So they were forced to do this thing. Okay, if it was not done, it was considered a crime and was liable for punishment. As a result, there was a widespread sentiment of anger and hatred for the British among the Indians. So, these were the things, right, which were done by the Britishers, and so due to it, the Indian people, right, their sentiments means the feelings and emotions of the Indian people got hurt like anything, and they became very very angry, and due to that, the feeling of hatred became more and more towards the British people, right? So destruction of Indian trade and industries. Okay, so how we'll see that the handlooms of India supplied. Handlooms means the industries, manufacturing industries of the cloth, right? So those manufacturing industries are known as handlooms. The handlooms of India supplied textiles to the markets of Asia and Europe, right? So before the Britishers, the Indian textile and handloom industries exported their clothes to the European markets and also to the other countries of Asia. The traders from the European countries used to come to India to purchase commodities. The Indian made jute, silk, woolen, and cotton textiles were in high demand in the European markets. The soft and delicate muslin of Dhaka, right? So, muslin is a very soft cotton cloth, right? Where it is very thin and it is also very soft cotton cloth, which was available in Dhaka. So Dhaka is presently in Bangladesh. Okay, so the soft and delicate muslin of Dhaka was world famous. Apart from textiles, commodities such as saltpeter, right? So it is the common name for potassium nitrate, sugar, etc. were exported in exchange of tremendous amount of bullion, right? So bullion means precious stones, jewelries, gold, silver, etc., right? So our Indian commodities were so much in demand that in exchange of those commodities we used to earn bullions and golds and silvers and everything. Okay, so we'll further proceed. The whole scenario changed as the British rule was implemented. The flow of bullion, that is gold and silver, got reversed. Got reversed means the gold and silver which came to India now was earned or taken away by the Britishers to England. Okay. In the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, the British took 500 crore rupees as per today's standard only from Bengal during their rule. Students, if we hear 500 crore rupees today, this figure is uh, frequently heard in the newspapers, regarding different industries or companies. But just imagine about those time, 18th and 19th century, right? If you have heard from your fathers or means father or grandfather, what was the value of this money at that time, right? So at that time even 500 rupees was very much valued, right? So just imagine that 500 crore rupees at that time, how much valuable it might be, right? So such a huge amount was earned or taken away only from the Bengal. So you can just imagine that from the whole India, how much amount or money the Britishers might have taken away, right? Just imagine the wealth the Britishers would have accumulated from the whole country, right? So that is what I've already told you. With the help of the raw materials produced in India and the money collected from India, the business and industries in the England prospered. That means in England there was industrial revolution. So whatever money was earned from India, whatever money was taken away from India was used in the development process of England, and slowly and gradually the Britishers or the English people, they become more and more rich, they became more and more prosperous, and in exchange of that the people in India, they became more and more poor, and the life of these people became more and more pathetic, right? Their mills started progressing. The cloth manufactured in England was imported in India without laying any duty on it, whereas there were taxes up to 80% on the cloth manufactured in India. Yes, this is the main point. Now what happened, the cloth which were manufactured, right, the raw material like cotton was taken away from India to England. Over there they manufactured clothes in their factories, and this same clothes were imported to India. Imported to India means brought from England to India, and it was brought to India duty free. That means when they brought this clothes from England to India for selling, they did not, means there was no need for them to pay the taxes on it. Otherwise, if we import anything from other countries, right, then a tax is levied on that. So the Britishers were not liable to pay any tax on the clothes which they imported to India, and the clothes which were manufactured in the Indian market had to pay 80%, right? So taxes up to 80% on the cloth manufactured in India was to be paid to the Britishers. Now just imagine about the situation, right? What will happen? The clothes which were brought from England will become cheaper as compared to the clothes manufactured in the Indian industries, because the Indian manufacturers of the cloth had to pay 80% tax, right? So automatically the price of the Indian cloth will increase, and the people, they will prefer the clothes which are available at cheaper rates, and no one will buy clothes manufactured in the Indian industries. Okay, as a result, textile made in India became costlier in the Indian market itself. The handicraft and cottage industries could not withstand the competition, and they could not sustain themselves. Right? So, this is the thing, right? But obviously, because they could not sell their goods, and whatever was produced, for that they had to pay very heavy taxes, right? So the cottage industries could not sustain in the Indian market. Okay, many skill based industries of our country like textile industries, glass, paper, mineral, shipbuilding, etc. got ruined means destroyed due to the policies of the Britishers, right? So these were the unfair or unjust policies which were adopted by the Britishers, and due to this, the industries in India could not sustain. They had to be shut down or to be closed. Okay, lakhs of skilled workers became unemployed. Gradually, the poor workers of the rural areas of India became poorer. So below the picture you can see, right? So these are the skilled laborers of India who became poor and unemployed. So below that it is written plight of cottage industries in India. Plight means difficult situation, right? So situation of cottage industries in India was very crucial or difficult, right? We'll proceed further. Suspicion about the reforms. So suspicion, again I'll tell you, suspicion means doubt. Okay, so doubtful about the reforms. So Indian society or the people in India became doubtful when the reforms were introduced in India, right? So what what reforms were introduced in India, and what was its impact in the Indian society? We'll see now. When William Bentinck came to India, liberal thinking was getting its stronghold in England. That means the Britishers, right? What is written? When William Bentinck came to India, liberal thinking was getting its stronghold in England. That means the people in England were becoming more and more liberal towards the thinking process. Okay, so there was a change in the attitude of the people of England, right? And their thinking also. This way of thinking slowly reached India. The British rulers started taking interest in the lives of the people of India. Okay, Lord William Bentinck became quite popular in India by introducing few beneficial reforms. Reforms means changes. Okay, so he brought some changes in the Indian society which were beneficial for them. During his time, Indians started getting jobs in company administration. So before this, uh, the job in the administration was restricted. That means they were not allowed to do administration work, right? Indians were not appointed for the administration work. Administration means management. Okay, but now as there was a change in the thinking and it was liberalized, the Britishers started giving jobs to the Indians in their company, in the administration. Indians were allowed to use their mother tongue in the court of law. Right, before this, the Indians were not allowed to speak their mother tongue in the court, and due to that, what happened? The Britishers could not understand anything, and always the Indians were held liable for the things which they had not done at all, and they were given different punishments. Okay, but now they were allowed to speak in their mother tongue, right? Due to that, it became quite easy for them to represent themselves. Okay, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who was a social reformer of India, and other social reformers were constantly making efforts to stop the evil practices of sati. Evil means it was a kind of system, sati system. We have heard about that, right? So whenever any male person died, whenever a husband died, and after him, even the wife was forced to be burnt after his husband. So this was the sati system, which was absolutely wrong, right? It was a kind of evil in the society. So Bentinck agreed to these efforts and passed a law in 1829 to ban the practice of sati. So he helped the Indian reformers, right, in banning this practice of sati in 1829. During the time of William Bentinck, the English rulers tried to eradicate the social evils. Eradicate means to remove the social evils as per the will of social reformers. That means there were still other social evils prevalent in the society which were removed by William Bentinck. The Orthodox class witnessed these reforms with suspicion. Orthodox means what? That means Orthodox people are the people who are believer of old thinking, right? They only believe in old thinking, what customs or traditions were followed from the hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So they are the people who don't accept the change easily, right? So they are known as Orthodox people. So this Orthodox people witnessed these reforms. That means when these reforms took place, they were very much suspicious, right? They were doubtful about these reforms, and they felt that their culture is being vanished or is being ruined or destroyed. Okay, the company had passed a resolution to spend 1 lakh rupees every year on education, but it was not implemented. That means the Britishers had decided to spend 1 lakh rupees every year on the education of the people, but this was only just on the papers, but in actual it was not spent. Okay, finally an education committee was formed, okay, during the time of Bentinck. In the year 1834, Lord Macaulay thought of introducing English education in India. Right, so after Bentinck, Macaulay was there, who is said to have started English education in India. Right, so he introduced English education in India. However, the educational method advocated by Macaulay could not benefit the youth. That means the system which he had implemented in India was not fruitful. Okay, Indians lost the advantage of acquiring the ancient knowledge and skills developed by their ancestors. So the system which was developed by Macaulay, right, in that system the Indians were not given any kind of education related to their culture, related to their ancestors, right, anything was not there. Only about the Britishers and their culture was provided to the Indians, so the Indians could not benefit much from this education and they lost their interest. Okay, the method of British education system was opposed by a number of intellectuals means knowledgeable people or the scholars, and Mahatma Gandhi called it as to give millions a knowledge of English is to enslave them. That means Gandhiji was against the English education which was started by Macaulay. Okay, that by receiving English education we have enslaved the nation. That means Gandhiji is saying that by adopting or acquiring English education we have become the slaves of the Britishers. Okay, further later 3 universities were established in 1857. The Britishers could get educated workforce due to the introduction of English education. Alongside, it also developed nationalistic thinking among the educated Indians. Now, again, I'll let you know that why this Britishers had started English education. Right? They were not much worried about the Indian people. In this introduction of English education, they had their self-interest. Now, what was their self-interest? I'll tell you. That means they had acquired whole of India. They had developed or they had their administrative offices in India, right? And it was not easy for the Britishers to bring the Britishers, that means to bring the English people from England for this kind of jobs every time, because when this kind of jobs were to be given to the English people, they were brought to India along with their families, right? So their cost and everything might be higher. But if in this place, if an Indian is hired, then the work could be achieved, right, or the work could be done with very less amount of money. That means Indians were employed, but the payment was very less as compared to the English person or the English people. So this was a self-interest, and because of that, this English people had introduced English education in India. And along with this, so as and when the English education was adopted by the Indian people, what happened? Our people became more and more educated, because we know that during that time also English language was such which was accepted or which was prevalent in many parts of the world, right? So our people who became educated with English education, they started reading books about different countries, right? At that time colonialization was prevalent in many parts of the world, so our people, they started reading the books, and they came to know that how the other people of the world got freed themselves, or how they became free from the colonialization of the other countries, right? So they became aware, and they also understood that the behavior of the Britishers, that means the Britishers had come to our country and they were using their power, right, on the Indians, which was absolutely wrong. Okay, so they absolutely understood that this system of the Britishers, what they were following in India, was absolutely wrong. So in the last line it is written that alongside it also developed nationalistic thinking among the educated Indians. That means the Indians who were educated, they understood that the behavior of the Britishers is totally unjust, unfair towards the Indians, and they should stop behaving in such a harsh way towards the Indians. So a kind of nationalism developed in the Indians. Okay, many machines were invented to facilitate the industries, transport, and communication. Considering the convenience in running administration and strategic importance of the military, the British introduced the railways in India. So this also we know, right? That means the first railway line between Mumbai and Thane was introduced, right? So this was also introduced by the Britishers for their own benefit only, right? And this Mumbai, here you can see, and this was introduced in the year 1853. Okay, further, in order to maintain an effective control on the country and to exchange messages with the neighboring territories, modern methods of post and telegraph were introduced in India in 1854 century, right? Printing press and circulation of newspapers grew alongside. Okay, so these were some of the reforms or the changes brought during the British rule. Further, these reforms were actually for the convenience of the British rule in India, but it turned out to be blessing in disguise, right, for the growth of nationalism in India. So what is the meaning of blessings in disguise? That means actually, uh, it was a kind of misfortune for India, right? But though it was not actually meant for the benefit of India, but then too the Indians got benefited from it, right? So disguise, blessings in disguise means, uh, again I'll explain you the meaning. That is, the things which were not meant or not beneficial for Indians, right, later on got beneficial for the Indian people. That is disguised, blessings in disguise. The class that acquired the English education spread-headed the social reforms and nationalism in India, since they were more familiar with the contemporary developments in the world around. So this I've already explained, that this educated people of India, right, they became aware that what the Britishers are doing and what is the practice or the unjust policies of the Britishers towards India. So they understood each and everything, and they were the people who started fighting against the Britishers. Contemporary means the present system, right? So they became familiar with the contemporary developments in the world around. So as I said, that they started reading the books of the different nations, how they fought against such kind of colonialism, how did they fight against such kind of injustice, and they got freedom. So they started reading the books, they understood all these things, and they also started fighting against the Britishers for the rights and freedoms of their own people. The post and telegraph brought people closer, right? So these were the effects of the British rule in India, right? So there were lots of disadvantages, lots of unfair practices done by the Britishers, but there were some reforms or changes which were ultimately beneficial to the Indian people. So here we end our lecture, okay? And I thank you everyone for watching my video, okay?